Hello everyone, and welcome back for another demo lesson for the academic students. This is Michael, and today we are looking at tables. Now, tables, I think, is one question that causes particular difficulties for students, and mainly, in my experience, this is because the amount of data is overwhelming for a lot of people. But today's lesson will just show you that it doesn't need to cause any more stress than any other question type. It's basically just the same thing: overview, and then describe your key features. So it's basically just that, no matter what the question type. Today, I'm going to make the lesson a bit more interactive. So I'd like you to have a pen and paper with you, and I'm just going to give you instructions about what I want you to do. And as I make the video, as we go through the lesson, basically I'm going to be assuming that you are following my instructions, and I'm going to be responding based on in that fact. So I'm assuming you're doing it, so I'm going to talk to you as if you followed my instructions. So here's our table. Now, in the past, just from my experience, students tend to gasp when they see this, and I suppose like when you look at it from far away, you've got 9 categories with 2 sets of data for each category, so you're left with 18 pieces of data that you have to squeeze into 150 words. So I guess when you think of it that way, there's a lot, but at the same time, you're still just deciding on what to put together into the key features first, and then describing it. Now, I don't want you to attempt the full essay by yourselves, because I just want to go through, because I feel that the table is more difficult for you guys, I want to go through it, so don't worry about writing the full essay first. What I want to do is look at the paraphrase. So let me just make that bigger there. So this is our original question statement. So when you're paraphrasing, you don't care about anything else on the question. This is the only thing that you're going to look at. So basically, what I want you to do first is, on the piece of paper in front of you, write down this write down this question statement, and kind of underline the chunks of words that you're going to paraphrase together. So like we were doing in previous weeks, you don't want to paraphrase one word, then the next word, then the next word. So just underline the sections that you're going to paraphrase. Okay, so pause the video if you haven't finished yet, and I'm just going to assume that you're all done. And I have underlined 5 different sections. It isn't necessary that you also have 5, but I think for me it's most logical to have divided my question statement into these 5 pieces. So for the one in red, I'm going to paraphrase as the chart illustrates. So as always, remove the word below, table becomes chart, shows becomes illustrates, that's fine. So I want you to pause the video again and paraphrase the next 4 pieces. So just write down what you will put in your paraphrase as opposed to writing the actual paraphrase yet. Okay, so I'll just give you 3 seconds and then we'll continue. Right, so the orange piece here is the average. Now in the past demo lessons, you may have remembered that I don't particularly think there's a great way to paraphrase this word, and for that reason, it's easier just to use that in my paraphrase. Now, don't feel that you have to remove or change every word from the original question statement. If it makes more sense, or if you have no other options, just take it with you, and we're going to use that in the paraphrase. Family expenditure, I have paraphrased this as the amount of money being spent by each family. Now, it's rare that 2 words would become 9 words like this, but it's okay, and I'm avoiding any repetition, I'm avoiding taking too many words from the question. So it means the same, I'm happy with that. Of a large country in Asia, I have in a large Asian country. Now, I'm sure you guys know synonyms for large. Perhaps you had in a big Asian country, but I just feel that the word large is more academic and more suitable, so I'm going to keep this one. And the final piece then is for 1980 and 2000. I have in 1980 and 2000. So I'm going to piece that all together, so I'll give you guys 3 seconds, so again, pause the video and watch when you're ready. But this is my paraphrase for that question. The chart illustrates the amount of money being spent by each family in a large Asian country in 1980 and 2000. So if you have a keen eye, you will have noticed that I forgot something. So can you just have a quick look and tell me what is it that I didn't remember to include in that paraphrase? So it was the word average. So sometimes it's important to go back and just have a quick look at the original question statement to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything. So when I was making this lesson, I actually did forget it, so I thought it was a good lesson for you guys just to show you that your language ability isn't necessarily holding you back. There are times that you just won't pick up on something. So I had to pop in the word the average, and now I have a complete and accurate paraphrase. The chart illustrates the average amount of money being spent by each family in a large Asian country in 1980 and 2000. So paraphrase done. We're finished with that, and next is our overview. So the first thing I want to do is I want to just annotate. I want to put little notes, little arrows, whatever I can to help categorize the information so that I can see it more clearly. So without making notes, it's hard for my brain to kind of take in everything there at the same time. So I'm going to just make a few little annotations here to help me get my head around it, if that makes sense. So first we're looking at utilities. I'm going to draw a down arrow from 250 to 232, so that decreased in that time period. Now, guys, I have the down arrow in red just for clarity for the video. Obviously, when you're in the real test, you're not going to have different color markers or pens or anything, but it doesn't really matter. This is just to help to show you on the video. So next one I had then savings, went down, housing, up, healthcare, down, then up, 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 up. Right, so there, it's very easy to see like what's happened between the years for each category when I do it this way. But what I've done, and you could do this just as easily in your test, I'm just going to make these 2 bold. So for housing, I've made that maybe scribble on the line a bit more just to make it a bit thicker, and healthcare. So I've made both of these thicker, and I want you to just pause the video for a second and consider why have I made these thicker? Like why do I want to draw more attention to these 2? Okay, and the answer to that is that housing increased the most and healthcare decreased the most. So they're the most significant amongst the others in their groups. And I might not use that later, but I'm analysing the data now, so I might as well give myself an extra bit of information so that I don't have to come back and look at it again later. Okay, so in my overview, again, I'm going to remove the other information because I don't really care about it for now. This is the information that's going to help me to decide on my key features. So after making the notes, I don't need the information about 1980 anymore. All I want is my arrows and the data for 2000. So what I want you to do is just tell me what is the most obvious information on the chart here. So there are, I would say, 3 things that are quite obvious. So just make a note yourself. So pause the video, note down what 3 things do you think are most significant or most obvious about the data we're looking at right now. And my answers for this were the total increased. So I'm talking about the bottom category here. So that went up. That is significant, and I'm going to use that in my overview. The next one, 5 of the categories increased, and 3 of the categories decreased. So I'm not including my total as a category because that is all of them together. So it's not really an individual category. So my total increased, 5 individual categories increased, 3 decreased. Now, what I want you to do is divide the key features into similar amounts of information. So we talked about this in previous demo lessons, but basically you don't want to have one category in one key feature and then 8 categories in the next key feature. You want to have kind of an even, or at least as even as possible split. So I'm going to have 2 key features, and I want you to just decide on what's going to go in the first key feature, what's going to go in the second key feature. So again, pause the video, make your own notes, and press play when you're ready. What I've done with my key features here is I put the total and the decreases together because that's giving me like 4 figures to deal with, or at least 4 like contrasts between the first year and the second year. And then I'm going to put my 5 increases into the second key feature. So that's how I'm dividing it up. So again, you have all the information you need in front of you. I want you to go ahead and write the first key feature and write the second key feature. So pause the video now. When you're ready, press play, and I will show you what I came up with. My first key feature was, although the total figure for expenditure increased, the amount of money spent on utilities, savings, and healthcare all decreased. So that has included my total, my decrease, and I have although this, comma, that. So this cohesive device I have used to show there's a contrast between this information. Now, when you consider, I've pretty much said everything because I've said that total increased, these 3 decreased, so it's already implied that everything else increased, that all the other categories increased. So I can't just say the other 5 categories increased. It's just a bit skimpy, it's a bit short, and it's a bit repetitive because I've already implied this in the first sentence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bold arrow from here and I'm going to use that to give me something worth saying instead of just saying something for the sake of saying something. So here, amongst the 5 categories that increased, housing increased the most to remain the highest source of expenditure. So I've just kind of given housing a bit more detail without giving detailed information, but describing what happened and how amongst the 5 there were 2 things important about housing. So that there is my overview. I'm just going to put those sentences together. Last week we looked at putting all your overview into one sentence, but that was only because we had 4 categories we were dealing with. This one, there's more going on. Your overview will be a bit longer than normal, but all we've done is divide up the ones that went up, the ones that went down, and the total. So here, I am just going to have a look at my problems with the overview, the key features that I wrote in the previous, just here, just what we just did. So I have the word increased 3 times, so obviously I'm not happy about that. I have the word spent. Now originally when I used the word spent, I was talking about money, so I thought that it was appropriate, but I have spent on utilities, savings, and healthcare. You can't spend money on savings, so that's not appropriate. So can you guys just have a look at these 4 words I've underlined and change the words to something more appropriate? Okay, so just pause the video and come back to me when you're ready. What I've decided to do with this one is I removed the first increase and went with was higher. I've removed spent on with used for, so that will apply to used for utilities, that's okay, used for savings, used for healthcare. These 3 collocate, so that's now an acceptable way of describing what happened in those categories. And then I went with the last one and just changed the 2 rows. So now I've removed my repetition, I've made my sentence more accurate, and one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I know this is something that students have struggled with, or at least wasted time on before, is that a lot of students will like use an eraser and replace the words here, but really the examiner doesn't care. If you've crossed out the word and written another word over it, the examiner isn't going to look at the first word you said, or for example here we had spent on. They're not going to go, oh look, they were wrong the first time, they tried to say spent on savings and that's wrong. They're not going to spend time looking at things you've already said were wrong. So they just look straight on about the amount of money used for utility savings. So you don't need to erase it in that. I know some people just really want to have everything looking nice, but you're not getting any scores for that. So don't waste too much time erasing stuff. If you put one line through it and the examiner can still see the word behind the line, they don't care, they're going to ignore it. So there's no benefit to like scribbling over the word until it's unreadable and like going up and down and back and forth and making sure that nobody will ever see what the mistake was. There's no benefit. There's only a drawback, and the drawback is you're losing time. So put a line through, write your word above it. You haven't lost any time, you've corrected your mistakes, you've improved your range of vocabulary, so everything's looking good. Right, so my complete overview is this. But now I'm looking at it again, and I'm not that happy. There's one thing that I'm missing that is just removing some of the clarity from the overview. So one more time, pause the video, read the sentence, read the overview carefully, and tell me what about this will make it a little bit difficult for the reader to understand exactly what you're describing. So pause the video for me now. And hopefully some of you found it. I haven't put in any of the years. So how do I know what the information is referring to without a year? And I'm just going to draw my little arrow in there and leave in the year, or in 2000. So although the total figure for expenditure was higher in 2000, the amount of money used for utilities, savings and healthcare all decreased. So we look without that word 2000, it's not as clear as with it in. And it's important to have another look and just make sure that you're not missing anything, or that there isn't anything making it difficult for the reader. So you can't just look at it from your own perspective of you know what you are trying to say. You need to think of it from the perspective of the reader, in that will somebody else be able to tell what you're trying to say. And again, like I just said with the last one, don't worry about having the text look beautiful. As long as it can be read, that's fine. So in your text, if you put in your little arrow here and write the word above, even if the word you might have to write the letter smaller to squeeze it in between the words, or in between the 2 lines, that's fine. As long as it can be read, you shouldn't worry about that at all. Okay, that's the complete overview then. I'm happy with that one. And we're just going to have a quick look at the details paragraphs. Now, I'm not actually writing one for you, I'm just going to help you to categorize it. So let's just say what I've done, for example, here is I said, so my first details paragraph, the first sentence I'm going to say is about the total, because it was going to be about the total and the decreases. So first sentence is going to be about my total, and my second sentence in the first details paragraph will be about these three categories. So I want you to do the same thing for the second details paragraph. I want you to pause the video and decide what would you put into the first sentence and how would you categorize, or how would you group the rest of the information for the final details paragraph. Okay, so again, pause the video for me now, and then I will show you how I would do it. Okay, so I'm going to presume that you're finished and you've pressed play again, so you're ready to see how would I categorize my last paragraph, my second details paragraph. So you might remember in the key feature I made quite a big deal about housing, that it decreased the most and it remained the highest category. So it was the highest in 1980, it was the highest in 2000, and it increased the most. So I made a big deal about that. So I'm going to like designate one full sentence to housing. So that's going to be 2.1 referring to details paragraph 2.1 sentence 1. So details paragraph 2 sentence 2 I have given to these three categories, because three categories together is enough. It's going to be harder to write about four together. And I've just left other as I'll write one short sentence about other, because it decreased the least and it would make more sense to leave that out of the grouping in the 2.2. So I'd have 2.1 would be a relatively long sentence, 2.2 would be about the same, but using like terms like respectively to kind of talk about all of them together. And finally, I would just have a short sentence, 2.3 on other. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys and you are more confident at tackling tables after watching this. So what I have for you is another similar question. I want you to go through the whole process again, but by yourselves this time, and then pop your answers into the comments below this video. So that there is your question. And if you are more confident, you can set yourself a 20-minute time limit. If tables are something that you struggle with, then just take your time and build up your confidence and make yourself more capable of doing this by yourself. My parents are actually over visiting me at the moment. They're over visiting my wife and I, so I'm actually on holiday right now. I made this video in advance for you guys, so Chris will actually be giving you your feedback for this particular lesson. So tomorrow you will have global feedback from Chris. Next week is General IELTS again, so I will be back with you guys in 2 weeks. So hope you're all good between now and then, and thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you've all learned something from this.